For a long time in Catch the Fire, we have had an ongoing conversation and journey around Monday is your most important day. And this Sunday is about coming in and being refreshed, refueled and rearmed and launched off the aircraft carrier that is Catch the Fire into your place of mission, which is your Monday. And so we want to carry on that conversation a bit today and just talk about our experiences in our corporate careers and what have you, about being a Christian in the marketplace. And what does that mean and how does it show up and what does it look like? And many of you will know that I work part-time for Catch the Fire, and the other part of my time I contract as a project manager in construction. And Matt is...
I work for a large corporate in New Zealand, one of the largest, perhaps.
Yes, perhaps. Nearly the top.
Close. Perhaps.
Perhaps. So, we are very familiar with what does it feel like to be a Christian at work. And as I've journeyed through my life, I've realised it's not always easy. And how am I supposed to be? And our heart really is to try and normalise being a Christian in the marketplace. And some of the learnings that we've had over time, see if we can impart those to you so that's helpful for you. So we're going to do, it's a bit of a discussion, it's a bit of a Q&A, it's a bit of, we'll just see. But we sat around on the couch on Saturday and filled half an hour quite easily just chatting, so we'll see how we go.
So maybe that'll be helpful.
Maybe it will be. So I think the first thing, Matt, I want to ask you is when you go into work on a Monday morning, how do you position your heart? What is your inner posture of being as a Christian going into where you work?
For me, this is my ministry. I think as a Christian, as someone that's got the Spirit of God in me, that goes with me everywhere, right? So whether it's here on a Sunday or whether it's in the office on a Monday, I'm called to bring the kingdom. And sometimes to even say that. But most of the time, just to turn up and demonstrate the love of God for people, It's the Great Commission, isn't it? And it's God saying, love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. And the people that I get to interact with and I'm privileged to, be part of their lives every day, I get to love them and I get to demonstrate Jesus to them, hopefully.
So on Saturday we were chatting and you talked about salt.
I did talk about salt.
And I really liked what you had to say about
like that. Yeah.
So I think it'd be good to share that.
So Matthew 5:13 talks about that you're the salt of the world, right? Salt of the earth. And if you reflect on that, salt for me is about flavour. It's about permeating. It's about a little bit goes a long way, right? And I don't know about you, but I think sometimes we read that verse and figure that we've got to give everyone all the salt all at once, And let me just, I bought some props. Stu doesn't know this.
No. This is out of scope.
This is out of scope. This is natural sea salt and sea salt flakes. Observe. If I were to take a spoon of salt and give it to Stuart, he's not so keen, right? Okay. That's pretty good, thanks.
That's good.
And if we try and give people all the salt all at once, sometimes that's not so good. However, if I were to offer Stuart a piece of salt-flavoured chip, that would kind of be good, right? So a little bit. Often, we're there to kind of permeate into flavour the environment that we're in. Like a chip. There you go. You're welcome.
Now I've got a chip stuck in my throat. And I think being normal is what we need to be. And I know it's hard for Matt, but But I realised that through the early part of my working career, when I was in my 20s, and I'd go to work and on a Monday morning, what did you guys get up? What did you get up to in the weekend? And it was like, oh, it was great. Played soccer in the afternoon, and we had some people around for dinner in the evening, and then just relaxed on Sunday, and it was a great weekend. And I just left out Sunday morning, and probably through those early 20s, I don't know that there'd be very many people at where I worked that would have known that I was a Christian, because I just didn't bring it up, and I didn't talk about it. And what I've realised and what I do now is that when people say, how was your weekend? I say, well, I don't say I played soccer in the afternoon anymore, but I dug the garden, had some people over for dinner, had an awesome time at church on Sunday morning, saw some people got healed. The afternoon was just a relaxing time. It was a great weekend. What did you do? And I've realised that actually, if I'm just normal, it's part of my life, and I invite you to, I'm not trying to get them saved on Monday morning. I'm not trying to preach the gospel to them. But because I have made it normal, the opportunity to preach the gospel presents itself, often in unusual ways. So I was working as a construction project management. I am around people that have quite colourful language a lot of the time. But I'm not a person of colourful language. But in this particular occasion, one did slip out. And we had a particular drama that happened that was not great. And I was standing with all of the consulting team, the construction team. We're having a meeting. I got a phone call, and it was not good news. And an expletive that I won't repeat emerged from my inner being at that moment. But interestingly, they were like, what are you going to do now? They were like, you've sworn. What are you going to do now? And just out of said, that's the beauty of being a Christian, that I can be forgiven for my sins. That's the gospel. Whatever we do that we do wrong, Jesus came to forgive us of our sins, and that's really. And so I just right there and then said, God, would you forgive me? And I said, let's move on. And it's like I had a 30-second window to just preach the gospel, And we were I was on another construction site, and the site manager was under huge amounts of pressure to get things done. And he was, sometimes when people get so stressed, they start to reverberate. He was being pulled in so many different directions. He just didn't quite know what to do. And I just instinctively just reached out to him and said, I bless you with peace. And the people that were with me like, oh, we're bringing out the big guns now. But my point is, because I've just made what I do normal with them, when the moment arises and when it comes out, it's just normal, right? And so, have you had experiences?
Yeah, we were
like that?
The same even this week. As we've been going through COVID, I've been kind of a part of our COVID response, and working with a bit of a team to look at how do we care for our people mainly. How do we look after people as the world's a bit discombobulated around them, and we've taken. We'll share more about that perhaps later, but we've taken we've had to work really, really differently. We've got 20,000 people around the world, right? And what's really interesting about this situation is that there's a global event that's affected everyone pretty much the same, and everyone's having a similar experience, whether we're here or whether we're in Shanghai or Mexico or North America or in Chile or in Indonesia or wherever it is, and people are feeling a real lack of peace. And so as we've gone through this process, we've kind of been capturing learnings from what we've done differently around. And what we have done differently is we've cared for people a lot more, right? And we've been able to speak peace into people a lot more. And as part of those learnings, our team has kind of gone, we think moving forward we should keep some stuff and we should not go back to what we've done previously. So I've been a core part of kind of developing that. And the core is we want to care for people a lot more, we want to love people a lot more, we want to embed love in our culture, and we want to give them more flexibility and more agility. So we had a big presentation to our senior management team on Tuesday with these principles there, and my boss was freaking out. Because this is a big deal, right? You know, you go to the senior management team of a large corporation and go, we really need to embed love in our culture. You know, that's what we need to do, right? And she had to deliver that kind of message and talk about it. And she was freaking out, and we were doing the final kind of preparation via a video call. I was at home. She was in the office with someone else that was there, and we'd gone through and she'd done the pitch and we'd tweaked some words and stuff, and then she said, and then I said at the end, would it be okay if I just blessed you for this meeting? And she was like, oh, that would be so good, you know, not a believer, you know, but it's how we show up, right? And so I blessed her for peace and for clarity and for wisdom and to step into the authority that she's got, okay, and to know that regardless of the outcome, that she's valued just for who she is, right? You know, yeah. So she was in tears after that, which is lovely, right? Because that means God's working in her heart, you know. But that's just because I've been there day in, day out for 11, 12 years probably. Just being
a little bit of salt.
Just being a little bit of salt, mate. That's exactly it. Yeah, just being a little bit of salt. And every now and again you get the opportunity to go, let's bring a little bit of kingdom, bring some peace to an individual or to a whole group of people.
Yeah, I really want to emphasise the point around just not being afraid to be normal, and just bring who you are. And you know, obviously planting a church, 6 years ago, became a conversation point for people. And you know, as I talk to people about what I do, often the question would come up, how do you do that? And I just put it in the language for them, it's just like starting a business. But then I quickly moved on to, and I remember once I was flying back from Wellington and with an architect, and we were in the lounge waiting for our flight to come back, and this conversation started. And so I started sharing with her this supernatural story that I share with all of you around what God did and said at the birthing stages of Catch the Fire, about the provision of finance and the man walking up to the door who saw a flame of fire on top of our house, and you know, and I was just sharing testimony of what God had done, and her response at the end of it was, "You got me." Well, what she's saying is, I have no argument. I don't necessarily connect to the story, but I can't argue with the story. And I learned something in that moment, and I've since heard it, that a man with a testimony beats man with an argument every time. And so your testimony is your testimony. Your story is your story. Your experience is your experience. And nobody can take that away from you. And so don't be afraid to share it, because actually people want to listen. That's the other thing that I've learned over the years, is that if you are authentic, if you are normal, if you are at peace, then whoever you are talking to will be normal and at peace.